God is a killer. Now let me explain. If you let him, he will kill your old, selfish, unhappy, bored, wretched, mistrusting, loveless self. But he only does it if we allow him to do so. And he will only do it as much as we want him to. Because God is a gentleman, and he will never take advantage of our souls. But he will woo it. Joy is a result of love, true love. St. Thomas Aquinas speaks of this love as charity. He uses the Latin word caritas, which is more than just a feeling. It implies a gift of self, a conscious choice on the one that is loving. It's not the emotion or the butterflies in our stomach when there's someone that we like. A true gift of self, meaning that we are willing to pour ourselves out entirely for the other. And the fruit of this kind of love is joy. Taking the time to consider the true meaning of joy is especially important because joy is often misunderstood. We often think that joy is reducible to a pleasurable feeling or a delight. Joy is not simply a delight. We take delight in all sorts of things, like a delicious meal or a glass of wine. And even animals take delight in things that taste good. But we do not say that those animals are joyful. Joy, on the other hand, is caused by love, especially when we are in the presence of the one that we love or the thing that we love. So the joy of Christmas does not come from all of the holiday trappings as our materialist and consumerist society lead us to believe. Far greater than the presents we exchange at Christmas is the presence of Jesus Christ, sent to us from God the Father, a gift wrapped in swaddling clothes. God's presence in the Word made flesh is the true source of our joy. Not only does our God, who is love and who created us out of love, come to dwell among us, but he also comes to bring us salvation. We heard in Isaiah this morning, "Here is your God. He comes with vindication, with divine recompense. He comes to save you." We are filled with joy in the presence of God who comes to save us, and in the salvation that he has already won for us. The third Sunday of Advent is Gaudete Sunday. Gaudete means to rejoice. It's not just a simple, well, you ought to rejoice or you can rejoice, but it's a command to rejoice in the Lord always, Philippians chapter 4 says. We rejoice because the coming of the Lord is near. And we wear rose as a sign of that closeness to the coming of the Lord. Rose is, in a sense, a lightening of the violet that we normally wear during Advent, in order to remind us that he is near. And since God causes our joy, we are to rejoice. Pius Parsh, a priest who's a liturgical commentator, says, "Nature's annual cycle is characterized by two phenomena, light and life. Out of the darkness comes light, out of death comes life. The transition from night to light characterizes the winter season. The transition from death to life is proper to summertime. So the holy year of the church is likewise divided into two phases, which have similar characteristics. And so during Advent, we wear violet and rose on the third Sunday of Advent. And during Lent, we wear violet and rose on the fourth Sunday of Lent to symbolize this night to light and this death to life. The darkness of the winter months will soon begin to fade, and the sun will begin to hang out longer during the day. The coming of Christ is a light in the darkness. And as St. John the Baptist says, "I must decrease that he may increase." The light of the day begins to increase As the light of the world, Jesus enters the world. The colors of violet at dawn soon give way to rose, which is that last color before the sun rises. It is a lessening of the shade of violet because it then gives us hope. He is near. Christ is coming. As we near Christmas, our joy becomes more full. So how do we have joy? This season often brings with it much busyness that distracts us from the most important thing. Joy implies a rest. When we abide in the love of God, we rest in His love. He who abides in me, Jesus says, abides in love. Joy means that we have to live a life that is not self-absorbed, but is self-giving. Instead of looking at ourselves, we ought to look to others and look to their needs. To feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit prisoners, bury the dead, give alms to the poor. You maybe have heard these before. These are called the corporal works of mercy. They are our exterior acts that we do in order to show how we are converted to Christ. They turn our gaze outside of ourselves and turn towards the love of our neighbor. They allow God to kill our own selfishness in a sense and teach us that compassion for those who go without basic needs. As St. Francis of Assisi reminds us, it is in giving that we receive. But not only the corporal works of mercy, then, there are the spiritual works of mercy. Counseling the doubtful, instructing the ignorant, admonishing the sinner, comforting the sorrowful, forgiving injuries, bearing wrongs patiently, praying for the living and the dead. These also teach us to love as Christ loves, so we may have the joy that Christ brings. We heard in the gospel today that from his jail cell, John the Baptist asked, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we look for another?" Jesus said to them in reply, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind regain their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news proclaimed to them. And blessed is the one who takes no offense at me." It is through the works of Jesus that John the Baptist knows that he is the Messiah, that he is the Lord. True joy comes through living out our faith, this faith that we have in Jesus Christ. If it is not lived, if we don't perform these exterior actions and still say that we have faith, and we are not truly converted. Faith requires that our actions change. And if we are not truly converted, then why do we show up here? Are we just here to see a reed swaying in the wind, in a sense? Are we just here to go with whatever we've always done? What are we to do with our life in order to receive this joy? Joy is received when we love. Love means that we have to go outside of ourselves. It requires an action. The fruit of love is joy. If we truly believe that Jesus is our Lord, our actions must become like those of Jesus. The corporal and spiritual works of mercy, those are the works of Jesus. So through the acts of love, God kills us. He kills that selfishness within us. He kills that self-absorption that we often have. And through those acts of love, we will be known as true Christians. And the joy of Christmas will not just come once a year.